I was 10 years old when I had first been told about the monster. It was a normal evening at my house, my mom and I awaiting my father's arrival, and I helped her cook dinner. I look back on these memories fondly, as I enjoyed my mother's company, and was delighted whenever my father came home each night. Whatever resided in that pantry would reveal itself that very night. There it goes again, scratching at that pantry door. What is it, Mom? I can't be certain, sweetie, but it's been there ever since we moved in. Sometimes it scratches at the door, other times it knocks off food in the shelf. Some nights it doesn't make a sound at all. Oh, really? It's nothing to be scared of, honey. Is it a monster? No, of course not. Here, look. Mom, wait! See, sweetie? It's just as scared of you as you are of it. There is nothing to be frightened of. Now come along. Let's finish up dinner before your father gets home. It has now been many years since then. My mother died of a heart attack. My dad died just weeks later of lung cancer. He always had a bad habit of smoking, even in the house. It was expected, as I had been in and out of hospitals for many months, visiting the two of them. In their wills, I was left the house, as I was their only child. Although difficult, I did eventually accept the situation, and it became a whole lot easier to cope. Sometimes I would walk in the living room and see my dad sitting on his favorite part of the couch, smoking a cigarette. I would sometimes still see my mom cooking in the kitchen and getting ready for dinner. These were just the little things that kept me going each day. I actually enjoyed living in that house again. Until one day. I had just gotten home from work when it happened. I sat down on the couch and laid there. This is when I heard a very, very familiar noise. I jumped up and walked into the kitchen. The scratching continued and became louder. I looked at the pantry door, hoping an answer would jump out at me, but also hoping that whatever was in there wouldn't do the same. Of course, neither of those things happened, forcing me to actually open the door. I hesitantly did so, but the scratching went on. The noise ceased, and I found nothing behind the door but empty shelves, an old bag, and a scrub brush looking thing. This is exactly what happened when my mom opened the door years ago. I think I subliminally stayed away from the pantry, having been so scared of it as a child. My food remained in cabinets and the fridge, with absolutely nothing in the pantry itself. I was no longer a frightened child, but the return of the scratching noises was still unsettling, not to mention bothersome. I didn't hear it for years before this, but now it happened every day, like clockwork. As soon as I get home from work, there was the scratching. Sometimes I would even wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of scratching. It would not stop until I opened the pantry door. This routine continued for almost a year. But one night, something changed. I was lying in bed, trying to sleep, when the scratching sound started up once more. Not wishing to leave the comfort of my bed for anything, much less than that damned noise. Because of this, I did not get up right away to open the pantry door. I just laid there, as tired as ever. After a few minutes, something odd happened. The sound of the scratching stopped. Now, don't get me wrong, it was great. I didn't want to leave my bed anyhow, but the noise had never done this before. I was curious as to why. I got up out of bed and ventured down to the kitchen. When I arrived, what I saw alarmed me. The pantry door, it was wide open. This could not be. I had shut it earlier that night when I got home from work, the first time I heard the noise all day. I quickly turned on the pantry light to reveal absolutely nothing. Just the same old shelf, same old empty bag, same old scrub brush. For the first time since I was a child, I was frightened of the monster living in the pantry. Whatever it actually was, I think it had escaped. I scoured the house in fear for almost an hour, looking for whatever it was that had gotten loose. I was scared. After going through every last room in the house, I took a deep breath and collected my thoughts. was I doing? This was ridiculous. I was on the hunt for something imaginary. Sure, there was scratching on the door every night, but maybe it was a large rat or a raccoon. Maybe I actually did leave the door open last time I heard the noise. Who knows? I managed to calm myself down as I made my way back to the kitchen to close the pantry door. That's when I noticed something that had not been there previously. There were deep scratch marks on the inside of the door. Those were never there before. Even as a child, my mom had checked for any marks in the wood, and there were none. I rubbed my eyes a few times. I even pinched myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Surely enough, it was all too real, and I had no explanation for it. After a few more seconds of private confusion, I watched as a figure ran into the pantry at high speed and the door shut behind it. I couldn't make out what the figure was, but I ran over to the pantry and opened the door to find out. My heart was racing, but once again, I found nothing. As fast as I could, I ran out of there and shut the door, not even turning the light off. Piled a bunch of stuff, pressing it hard against the wall, trying with all my might to get as many heavy things in there as possible. I ran up to my bed and hid under the covers as if I was a child again, scared to death of the monster living in my mother's pantry. My late night adventure had come to an end. After the adrenaline and fear tampered off, I was able to get some sleep. I woke up and pretended that nothing happened the night previous. I just did what I usually did. Put my clothes on, brushed my teeth, ate some breakfast, and headed off to work. I could barely function properly, let alone get any work done. My boss noticed this and asked if I wanted to leave early and get some rest. I almost shouted the words no, begging him to let me stay. I wanted to be nowhere near my house. Luckily, he obliged. Even though I was able to stay at work, I had to clock out eventually. Despite my tiredness, the day went by too quickly, and I found myself home once again. Despite my inner outburst, I still opened the front door and walked in. I was greeted with the sound of scratching, but this time it was louder than it ever had been before. The things I had piled in front of it actually were moving a bit. Whatever it was that was in there really wanted to get out this time. I was as scared as the night before, but I was also sick of the ordeal. I was being pushed beyond my means, and I needed it all to stop. I took a moment to mentally prepare myself. After a few seconds, I walked over to the door and swung it open. There, sitting behind the door, was a cricket. It just sat there, looking at me in confusion. I looked at it in the same manner. How could this be? After giving me a once-over, the cricket walked over to me and nuzzled up to me. Naturally, I put my paw on its head and started to pet it. just like it was a normal cricket. After a few minutes of getting to know each other, and vanished. It was a ghost. My fear was no longer existent. I would come home to the sounds of scratching at the pantry door, and I would smile. I now opened the door, not to see nothing behind it, but instead to let my new friend out. He would walk around the house and explore like a normal cricket. He would even sit down and watch television with me from time to time. Whenever someone came over, however, he would vanish. He seemed to be the shy type. I guess he just couldn't let go of the place. Neither could I, especially now. After a few weeks of playing and bonding with the cricket, I realized that I had nothing to call him. I thought about it for a moment, and then I came up with the perfect name. I will call you Monster.